Oleksandr Usyk versus Tyson Fury is about to go down tomorrow night, and myself and Joey Knights is going to give you our final predictions. And you know, this Riyadh is starting to come our second home, isn't it?
Mate, I'm absolutely buzzing to be here, man. This is ridiculous. Every event's been ridiculous, but for this one, for myself to be able to witness literally the heavyweight fight of our era, it's madness.
You've got to pinch yourself, haven't you? It's
know.
absolutely crazy. And I mean, last night, the Ring magazine relaunch, and I mean, I got to meet two of my heroes, the Hands of Stone, Roberto Duran, and also Lennox Lewis, you know, the last undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. I mean, I feel so privileged to be here. It's unbelievable.
It was mad looking around that room and like the amount of... It's weird, yeah, like, because we're here in a working capacity.
Doesn't feel like work though, does it?
It don't feel like work at all. But then at the same time, you're like, you kind of don't want to be going over to everyone asking for selfies and stuff. But there's that balance. You're like, you don't want to walk away and pinch yourself and be like, I wish I had a... So there was like a few moments. I'm a huge fan, or I was a huge fan during his career of Andy Lee. And I turned around and Andy Lee was stood there and I was like, I can't not talk to him. Do you know what I mean? So I had a chat with him. I said, mate, I read your book. I said, I watched all your career, all that, yeah, but I said, I read your book and you can tell I liked you as a fighter because I can't even read, mate, and I still read your book. I said, because his book's well confusing. I said, it jumps back and forward as well. So he knew I was like telling the truth. So yeah, it's mad. We had a good laugh with Daniel Dubois. It's joke. Like when I'm telling my friends back home, I'm like, yeah, I was telling Joseph Parker I like the funny videos he makes and whatever. And it almost just feels like it's like not even a big deal to us now, but it's mental. Like it is, it's a massive deal. Do you know what I mean?
Well, standing talk to Lennox Lewis, and he said that he watches the Pain game. He knew who we were, which is just absolutely crazy. Like we're both big boxing fighters and fans of boxing, so the fact that one of our heroes knows us is just mind blowing. But let's get into it. So, what's your? I want to know your thoughts on Tyson Fury's behaviours, because you know he's talked about not speaking to his wife for like 3 months, and I also found it strange that he didn't do the public workout. And you're the fan, you're the true expert when it comes to Tyson Fury. What's your thoughts on that?
I think every single fighter is very, very different when they first take a loss, and with Tyson Fury, we've not seen him take a loss before. Do you know what I mean? So it's very... We haven't got a back catalogue to go on to go, okay, well, this was the time he reacted after his first loss. This was how I could compare it to how he reacted after his second loss. Ultimately, the main gist I have got from everything that I've seen in the preparation to this fight is he's locked in, he's zoned in, he understands that he needs to be better, and right until last night, I would say he was reserving every single bit of energy that he needs. So, no doubt that day he did some pad work. He just didn't do it for the media to see. Do you know what I mean? So I think he wants to keep as much up his sleeve as possible. I don't think that avoiding doing the open workout does that, because me and you both know, say we were in a position where we had to do an open workout, there's ways of giving the crowd something without showing anything to do with your game plan or whatnot. You know, if you're going to come out and box southpaw, you're probably not going to come out in the open workout and box southpaw. If you're going to be light on your toes, etc. But I think that with Tyson Fury for this one, it's very, very much about, I don't need to sell the fight. I don't need to promote this. I don't need to... Because I feel like he feels a little bit of... And this is just my interpretation. I feel like he feels a little bit of injustice in terms of there was a 10 million, either pound or dollars, I'm not sure, but a 10 mil deduction on his head if he didn't make that rescheduled date. So I believe that he feels that he had to sacrifice an ideal preparation to be able to make that rescheduled date. Now, what the comment sections will say to me now is, well, hold on, no one has an ideal preparation. Usyk could have had injuries and whatnot. And I'm not saying he didn't, but I feel that Tyson Fury feels that he was somewhat, somewhat had to have a little bit of injustice on his side to not be able to make that date. So I feel that this time round, he is literally doing what he is contractually obliged to do. And we saw that last night. He rocked up to the Ring Magazine thing. He didn't hang about.
No.
Usyk went as well, but Fury was gone twice as quick as Usyk was, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because his fans were constantly micro-analysing every little thing. And like, I think the biggest point you made there is the simple fact is, we had no previous data on Tyson Fury and how he acts after a loss. So this is, like you say, new territory for him. And, you know, realistically, like you say, the public workout, not doing it, it means nothing. You do your preparation, you know, behind closed doors. It doesn't matter what you do in front of the public. And, you know, I personally think that he's definitely, without doubt, more locked in. He realises that, you know, that loss, in a way, if you kind of lose and you don't change your ways, that means you haven't took it seriously and it hasn't really meant anything to you. When you react the way Tyson Fury has, and, you know, after the last fight, he kind of saying, you know, he thought it was the, you know, because of the Ukraine war and stuff like that, to give it to Usyk. You know, I've jumped back and forth with that. I didn't like it, I'll be honest, but I do understand, you know, he took it badly and he reacted, you know, the way he reacted out of emotion. And even though he hasn't kind of apologised for it since, it kind of tells me that he's so tunnel visioned on what he's trying to achieve. He's not worried about upsetting anyone. He's just super focused. But I personally like his mindset, and, you know, because I do think in the past he's been too jokey, not fully taking it seriously. And I think Tyson Fury, when he's like this, you know, this is when you get the best out of him. And I want this to be a great fight. So I want to see, you know, Tyson at his best.
I do think that Fury deep down would regret saying what he said about the old Ukrainian war thing, but I feel like he's in a situation where listen, he'll feel the love, but he'll feel the hate as much as he'll feel the love, and sometimes you can get 10 positive messages and one bad one, and the bad one's the one that sticks out, right? On a million times smaller scale than the fights even you've been involved in, let alone the fights Tyson Fury's been involved in. I took my first loss recently, and I literally can see message requests in my inbox from accounts that were going to me, "You're the man, you're going to win this tournament, blah, blah, blah." And then I've not replied to it. And then 3-4 months later, when I've been beat, the same account has messaged me saying, "Haha, you got fraud checked," and things like that. And it makes you think, fuck you lot. Do you know what I mean? Like, fuck off. So at the same time, I can see why Tyson Fury, when he's asked on it, when the interviewer went, "Do you regret what you said?" He went, "No, don't regret anything I said." Because it's sort of like a middle finger up to the people that have just slated you online and stuff like that and want you to do that. It's kind of me going, nah, I'm going to own everything I do and I don't give a fuck. Because the lovers became haters, and if you win, they'll become lovers again.
Exactly.
And that's what happens. So I think that he knows the game like that. To just think, no. Personally, I wouldn't have said it in the first place. Do you know what I mean? But I'm not trying to give excuses. What I'm trying to do is rationale and trying to think into the mind of someone.
Yeah, this is all he can do is try to get to the psychology, and, you know, we don't know how it feels to have the pressure that he's under fighting on the biggest fight in the world, because that's what it is. And I think Tyson Fury is the type of guy. He sticks by his word, even if he's probably wrong. He's the type, he doesn't bend over backwards for nobody. So I've got to, you know, when he said that comment and he didn't apologise, I wasn't respecting him for saying that. I was quite annoyed at him, to be honest. But, you know, the more I've thought about and realised the way Tyson Fury thinks, I think it's more of a point of, you know, I'm not going to bend over backwards. I'm not going to change my tune just because that's what the public want to hear. And, you know, I kind of got to respect him to an extent, not for what he done, but, like, I just know the way he thinks, and he's in the stage of the fight where, you know, it's a matter of weeks away, you know, when he first was, you know, asked about it in an interview. And I think at that stage he's in fight mode. He's not bothered about saying sorry. He's in battle mode. So
what percentage of your viewers do you reckon have had either professional or televised fights?
Well, it'll be a small percentage.
It'll be a very small percentage, won't it, right? So there's not many of the viewers watching now that know what it is like when someone puts a microphone in your face
under this pressure,
having a fight, after having that sort of adrenaline, after having that pressure. And let's remember, after maybe less than 15 minutes before, being out on your feet cold, and then someone puts a microphone in your face. Mate, someone might no, not even some. My cringiest ever moments on camera have come after I've just beat someone in a boxing ring, and I think I'm a fucking Misfits fighter, and I think I'm Floyd Mayweather all of a sudden. No one can beat me. I'm the best thing since sliced bread. You get like that. Do you know what I mean? So you say stupid shit. I'm not forgiving it. I'm trying to give you the reason as to why it happened. But do I agree with it? No, of course I don't. The same way I didn't agree with Anthony Joshua when he took the moment away from Usyk. Usyk's a class act. No one can deny that.
Yeah, well, this is it. Well, going into this rematch, how do you see this fight playing out in terms of from Tyson Fury's side of point of view? Because at the end of the day, he's the one who's taken the loss. We're going to get onto Usyk as well, but the simple fact is, it's Tyson who lost the fight. He had something happen to him which has never happened the full career. Getting battered in that 9th round. So he's going to have demons in his mind, in my opinion. But how do you think this fight's going to play out? What do you think What do you think his tactics are going to be?
I think that 90% of the time, what you hear from the fighter and what you hear from the camp is usually the opposite to what is actually going to happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's the exception to the rule. Tyson Fury being one of them. Tyson Fury in his rematch with Deontay Wilder said, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to back him up, I'm going to break him down. And I didn't believe him, and then he did it. But 90% of the time, it's the opposite. And you all know that yourself from fighting.
You don't give nothing away, do you?
You don't give nothing away. You don't give nothing away. So where the camp have said about coming in heavier, where the camp have said about backing him up, breaking him down, doing this sort of thing, being the bigger man, doing all that, my gut instinct tells me that that's not what's going to happen. My gut instinct tells me that Tyson Fury believes that being fitter and sharper will enable him to win the fight. My gut instinct tells me that Tyson Fury pinpoints that one moment as the moment that lost him the fight. Okay. And I disagree with that, by the way, as I know you probably do. And that one moment, by the way, is the moment in the 9th round. He comes forward, he throws 4 stupid shots.
He kind of steps in with the right hand. I think he leads with his
right. It's a bomb, 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 bomb.
Yeah.
And it's stupid.
Yeah.
It's stupid because they're not power punches, but you throw them walking forward.
Yeah,
if you're going to walk forward, you need power on them. Or really, you don't even throw those punches and you continue to move off. You're not going to back Usyk up with those sort of punches. And the round before that, he threw not the same combo, but he threw punches in a similar vein and got caught with that right hook left hand from the southpaw stance by Usyk. So he should have learned from that mistake. So that then proves to me that was coming. What happened in that moment was coming. But I believe that Tyson Fury pinpoints that moment, and therefore I believe that for Tyson Fury, it could potentially be as simple in his mind as be sharp enough and don't be zapped enough in that moment that I don't make that mistake and be more focused and concentrated. And what I believe that comes from, if I'm Tyson Fury and I'm trying to draw my confidence, I believe that comes from being fitter and being able to have more effective sparring where I'm not worrying about this £10 million bounty on my eye opening up. So I think that that's why he'll be coming into this fight with more confidence, and that's why I think that he'll believe that he can actually box in a similar way to how he did in the first fight.
So it is. I do kind of agree because the simple fact is sparring is the most important part of your training, and if you're going to miss any part of your training, it doesn't want to be sparring. And the simple fact is that cut, and like you said, he was under obligation to make sure that fight, the second fight when it was rescheduled, had to go ahead under that date. So, he didn't have long. In an ideal world, he would have had longer, let that cut heal fully, and then get into the sparring and you're fully prepared for the fight. But he had to do what he had to do, and, the lack of sparring, because sparring isn't just about your fitness, it's your timing, it's your, judgment of distance, it's everything. And the simple fact is, boxing's what you're doing, so hitting bags and pads that don't hit your back just simply isn't good enough. It's just part of the conditioning training. So I do believe, I think he'll take a lot of confidence from them rounds where he had success. In my opinion, that was like round 3 to 6. Them are the rounds that I give him. And you could argue that if he goes out and simply does that and he's more sharp, like more defensively aware, that may be enough. But the simple fact is, Oleksandr Usyk, in my opinion, always gives some rounds away. And, I don't think Tyson, even with a better camp, can match him for fitness. So I think it's going to have to be a combination of, boxing on the back foot in spurts. Every once in a while, he's going to have to dig them in. But I don't think he needs to change too much from what he done the first time round. I think the biggest thing, in my opinion, is when he lets his shots go, they need to be solid shots. Because for me, throughout the first fight, he was doing in them rounds that he was doing well, he was doing all the right things, but he wasn't digging the shots in. Like his jab, I made a comment in my last video about, he needs to be more like authority with his jab and he needs to throw more punches. But what I probably should have more said, it's more down to the quality of his punches. If he threw the same amount of punches this time, but threw them with more power, and more sharpness, I think the outcome will be better because he'll do more damage on Usyk. Because if you don't tire Usyk out, and you can do that by setting a pace that he can't stay with, which in my opinion he can't do.
Yeah.
But if he's able to actually do some damage along the way and slow Usyk down that way, then body shots were definitely playing its part against Usyk. And fair play to Usyk because he took them and he was still there and, we're seeing what happened. But I do think if he can dig them shots in a little bit more, because I also thought in times he was getting good success with the shots and it was singles, but he wasn't following up. I think a lot of the shots which were mentioned in the 9th round, when he went to throw that little cluster, it was just these little fast shots. It wasn't really going to do any damage. And I think partially because of the lack of sparring, I think that's why he wasn't quite as fit. And I just think with a better camp, you'll be able to throw them punches with a lot more venom and a lot more power. And I think, like I say, I think the biggest thing for me is more about the power in the shots in this. Like, you'll be able to, as the fight goes on, with the better fitness due to the sparring, you'll be able to throw them shots for longer with more power and more authority. I think that's the biggest thing. I don't think there's any magic formula where he needs to change loads of things, in my opinion, because, and just to give credit to Tyson Fury, one thing I can't say, his boxing IQ is second to none. In my opinion, his IQ is as good as Oleksandr Usyk. I just think because of the life that Alexander's lived, he's been more dedicated throughout his whole career. He's probably got more natural muscle memory of, just practice them basics day in, day out. Through the whole career. I don't think he's never had any time out in his full, 20, 30 year career, which is absolute madness.
It's not just living the life though. He's a more experienced boxer. He had 300 amateur fights. That's 10. Did he have 300? I think
I've heard 300.
Around 300 amateur bouts. That's 10 times the amount that Tyson Fury had.
But that's because of the consistency.
Tyson Fury had about 38 amateur bouts.
Yeah, but that's because of the consistency. Like Tyson Fury's been boxing since he was a kid, so technically you could nearly have similar amount of fights. But he hasn't been consistent throughout his whole career. He hasn't lived the life. He's dipped in and out of boxing throughout his whole career. And I don't know his full amateur career. You may be able to tell me different, but from what I'm aware, he didn't have that many amateur fights, and that's probably because he was in and out of boxing throughout his throughout his youth. Basically,
if you look at Usyk's amateur career, and if there's certain amateurs that your average fan won't even know about because they never turn pro, Camarelli or someone like that, but there's Solis. There's amateurs that like your average fan ain't gonna know about because I don't know if either of these guys even did end up turning pro. But there's those names that you always see and you're like, yeah, you went to 3 Olympics and a couple of Commonwealth Games and whatnot. Yeah. And if you look at Usyk's amateur career, bearing in mind like BoxRec doesn't even have all your amateur fights. It only really has ones that were in like actual tournaments that you can actually go on. Usyk's amateur record is like a who's who of boxing. Do you know what I mean? Like he fought so many people in the amateurs, whereas Tyson Fury, I think, fought David Price. Something wants to tell me he fought Michael Hunter or Oscar Rivas, one of those two, and that is it in terms of amateurs.
I think he mainly boxed in England, and then he probably represented England so many times, but he wasn't like someone like Usyk who was on the Olympic team from a junior through the seniors, and all year round he was travelling to various tournaments.
Even your boy Fraser Clark, look at the names he's got on his amateur record in comparison to a Tyson Fury.
Of course,
like it's night and day. And this is what I'm saying. Usyk's a more experienced man. Tyson Fury, it's his own fault why he hasn't been able to keep himself in that shape and stuff like that. But at the same time as this, Tyson Fury is a star. Yeah, and it's not just his boxing that made him a star; it's his personality.
100%.
And you do not get a man with that style of personality that enables you to have the X factor that Tyson Fury has, that also eats, sleeps, and lives training, stays disciplined, never falls out of a pub drunk, never makes the head. The two don't combine, mate. The two don't combine. Show me someone with that X factor who is an ordinary... Every genius has a bit of mad inside them. And unfortunately, Tyson Fury has that. So the fire burns bright while it's there, but it might not burn for as long as others.
Yeah, you're totally right. I can't, you hear people like, Roy Jones, who's flamboyant, and he, had a great career and very active, but I mean, he's a one-off. There's very few who's got the personality and the skill and discipline to be matched. I mean, can you think of any other fighters? I can only think of Roy Jones off head. There's other great fighters. You could think of someone like Floyd Mayweather, but
to have that longevity.
I just think the longevity and personality, I think it's...
Bernard Hopkins, maybe?
Yeah, maybe, yes, maybe something, yeah. There's very few.
There's not many. There's not many.
Yeah,
there's not many.
It's fair play. So let's get into it. What's your final predictions? Oh, sorry, just before we move on, just very briefly, I don't think it'll take too long. Usyk, what do you think his game plan's going to be going into this one? I don't think he's got too much to change, but what do you think? I'm going to give you mine quickly. I think personally when it comes to Usyk, we know he always finds a way to win. And if you look at the majority of his fights, tactically, he doesn't change too much. But what I do also think of the last fight is, he had to change his schedule again for the change of date. So I do think potentially we'll see a better version of Usyk because he probably overcooked a little bit because they both had to change the date, whereas, Tyson Fury had the cut so he couldn't spar. He probably stepped off the gas a little bit, whereas knowing the way Usyk is, he probably just stayed in the gym. I just think that's the way he operates. And I do think potentially in this fight we'll see a slightly better version, or if not more refreshed version. But in terms of tactical, I can't see Usyk changing too much. He does what he does. It says exactly what it says on the tin. I just do think that he's going to take some data naturally from Tyson Fury. Both guys, let's face it, they've now got data on one another. I think a lot of it will come down to who's learned more from the rematch. And, you could argue that Usyk had the winning formula, probably won't make too many adjustments. You could say that Tyson Fury is the one who's had to go away and, study in real depth because he's the guy who essentially made more mistakes throughout the fight. And generally speaking, I think when it comes to Tyson Fury, he's got a lot more loose-based style. So I think, I just think Usyk is a lot more set in his formula. He's been boxing the same way as we know 300-plus fights, all them professional fights. So I can't see him changing too much from in terms of tactics. What's your thoughts?
Tactically, I don't think he'll change too much.
Yeah.
In terms of his confidence in hurting Tyson Fury and going for the kill, I think we'll see
a more aggressive Usyk.
A more aggressive Usyk.
Agreed.
Like when we're looking at rematches, and this is a point that I kind of nullified on my own channel a few times. There's no point in looking at Tyson Fury's rematches because Del Boy, Deontay Wilder, and what's his name? McDermott. John McDermott. They're not, they're not southpaws, they're not anything like Usyk, right? So, but tactical adjustments you'd have had to have made. However, when I look at Usyk's rematch that he did have with Anthony Joshua, there was a part of me that looked at it first and went, Usyk wasn't as good in the rematch as he was in the first fight.
Okay.
And then I looked at it and I went, no, do you know what? Anthony Joshua was a lot better in that rematch than he was in the first fight and was able to make more adjustments. But when I watched through it and really, really looked at it, the main thing I found was that Usyk was more aggressive in the rematch. Although he was still on the back foot, he was kind of on the back foot in both fights against Anthony Joshua, I thought, right? A lot more so than we saw him do against Daniel Dubois, a lot more so than we saw him do against Tyson Fury. However, I think that in the rematch, there were moments when Oleksandr Usyk was more willing to trade with Anthony Joshua, and when he did clip Anthony Joshua, he would come with that second phase quicker than he did in the first fight. And my perception, could be wrong, but I believe it's because he understood that he had AJ hurt in the first fight. Now, he didn't have him doing a DVD player like he did Tyson Fury, but there was a moment in the 12th round, and you can call me a conspiracy theorist here, but there was a moment in the 12th round when he had Anthony Joshua hurt in that first fight, and do you remember you see the towel going in the corner?
Yeah,
remember that moment?
Close, yeah.
And I'm like, is he waving the towel to say call it off? Because it was coming from Anthony Joshua's corner. People can debate that as much as they want, look it up online, whatever. I'm not saying either way, but I'm just saying there was a moment when AJ was hurt. If I noticed that, Usyk noticed that. And that's why I think that he was more aggressive and more willing to follow up on his good moments in that rematch with Anthony Joshua. So I think that, let's say, for example, he does land a good combination or a good shot on Tyson Fury earlier on in this fight, while Fury's still fresh. I think we'll see a more ambitious Oleksandr Usyk, and Oleksandr Usyk that's less hesitant to follow up on those moments than we did in the first fight. I believe in the first fight, he obviously, waited until he landed that sort of beauty of a combo that clearly stunned Tyson Fury and had him out on his feet. But at the same time, I think that he definitely waited until he felt that Tyson Fury was tired.
Yeah.
I think he relied on him being tired. But would you yourself think that if he hurt him in the rematch, even within the first 2-3 rounds, do you think Usyk would jump on him, or do you think he'd take his time?
I think that's what Usyk will do, because it's a natural thing to do. I mean, any coach will do that in the corner. If you've hurt someone in the first fight and you get the opportunity, your coach will tell you need to capitalise on that moment, because, it could turn around at any moment. It could happen to you. So you don't get paid for overtime, as they say in boxing. So I do believe that, and I do think Usyk's the type of guy. He's so intelligent, he'll take in all that data, and he knows that, in a way that I personally think that Fury was quite lucky that when he hurt Tyson, it was quite close to the end of the round. Had it been, another 30 seconds, even another 10 to 20 seconds earlier in the round, I personally think he might have got him out of there. He was quite lucky in the first fight, because, once he got that count when the referee jumped in, I think it was pretty much the round was over, and he was able to go back and recuperate. And we all know that Tyson Fury's got amazing, I think it's second to none when it comes to his ability to recover. I mean, it blows me mind, to be honest. And I just think that Usyk would be very stupid, because he knows that he's going to get the even better version of Tyson Fury in the second fight, because no fighter loses and comes back in worse, generally speaking. The only time they come in worse is if they're mentally weaker. But when it comes to Tyson Fury, what I do think, mentally, he's one of the strongest fighters out there, period. And I don't think he's going to come in here. Yes, I've talked about having demons, but there's without doubt going to be elements of that. But I do think in terms of rematches of people losing the way he did, I think he's going to come back stronger than a lot of people would. So I think Usyk's going to come in there knowing that he needs to take that opportunity if it presents itself. That's just the way I think it's going to go. Well, let's just wrap this up, because we could talk all day about this. I mean, it's so intriguing. I just can't wait. But final predictions.
I'm going Tyson Fury, points win.
Points win.
Yeah, I think that he'll need to ride a storm.
Yeah.
I think that there will be a moment in the fight when Tyson Fury definitely needs to ride a storm, whether that comes in form of him getting dropped, whether that comes in form of him being wobbled, big shots, whatever, having to hold on and recuperate and show those powers of recovery. There's a lot made of there's only so many times you can go to the well, but I'm not going to definitively say that, he's gone to the well too many times until I see it happen. Because one thing that I did see happen is I did see him recover, whether or not he was saved by the bell or not. 3-minute rounds are 3-minute rounds. They didn't call the bell early, you know what I mean? And actually, there's a debate to say you get a few more seconds if you do go down rather than if the ref jumps in. Because usually you go down, mate, a lot of people would say you get about an extra 10 seconds if you do go down and get back up, So that's another thing. But I think that Tyson Fury is going to make the adjustments that need to be made. I don't necessarily think that Tyson Fury is the better boxer out of the two of them. I'd say it's Oleksandr Usyk, but I believe that Tyson Fury is going to do something great tomorrow night, and I believe that when the storm comes, I think he'll be able to weather it, and I think it might be late. I think he might have to weather a 11th round storm, something like that. I think Usyk might even finish the fight stronger than Tyson Fury. But I do believe that Tyson Fury will be sharper. I think he'll start going to the body earlier this time than he did. And I don't think Usyk will find it as easy to force him back as he did in that first fight. So I'd say a Fury close points win, and it kind of sets up a perfect trilogy for me. What about you?
I can't see Fury winning. I mean, I do think we're going to get a better version. I don't think he's going to be as apprehensive early on, because I think he, as soon as the round started in the first round, he kind of was pushed onto the back foot within 30 seconds to a minute. And I think this time, I think he'll really be trying to stamp his authority and try to hold centre early. But in my opinion, I think he's going to come in more aggressive, and I think he's going to really try and get Usyk out of there. But I think that's going to be his downfall. I think Usyk, like was said, knows that he can hurt Tyson. And I think, I'm not saying he's going to go out there and stop him early. I think that Tyson's going to be trying so hard to get him out of there. I think he's going to be burning the gas tank. And I just think that Usyk, again, is going to be hurting him around the maybe 7th to 8th round. And I think this time, I think he gets him out of there. I just don't think... I think Usyk's going to really go for broke this time if he gets him hurt. And I just think stamina-wise, sharpness-wise, I think Usyk's a very hard man to match. And yes, Tyson Fury had his success, but I actually think the fact that he wants it so much might be his downfall. I think he's going to come out so aggressive. And yes, that worked against the likes of Deontay Wilder, who's not as quick. His feet aren't as good. Defensively isn't as good. But against Oleksandr Usyk, I think he could be making a mistake. And I think that Usyk beats him. I think within 8 to 9 rounds, I think he stops him.
What if Fury was to win?
Yeah.
What method of victory do you think is the most likely?
Me personally, I think the only way that Tyson beats him is by stoppage, which I'm not going to say I don't see happening, because at heavyweight anyone can be hurt. But saying that again, in the last fight, the judges give a round to Tyson Fury, which is robbery. So there's an element of me thinking if it's close, they'll give it to Tyson so that there's a trilogy. But if the judging's done correctly, I can't see Tyson beating him on points. I can only see by stoppage.
I think if I'm predicting Fury on points, I think if Usyk is to win, I'd agree with you. I think it comes via stoppage.
And what I would say is, people keep on thinking that I'm a bit of a Tyson Fury hater, and that I'm a fan of Usyk. Yes, I'm a fan of Usyk, but actually, regardless of the way Tyson Fury goes on at times, in which I don't always agree with, he's from Great Britain and I do support him. And, I think a win for him would be better for boxing, because when Tyson leaves boxing, it's going to be a sad day, because the entertainment he's brought over the years, and just the simple fact is, if he wins, we'll get to see a trilogy. And then, even if the trilogy doesn't happen, we'll get to see him in other great fights. And I'm not saying that he's definitely going to retire, but if he was to be beaten and stopped, I would question if he would come back. But, who knows, it's Tyson Fury. You never really know what's going on in his head. But so I think, if Tyson wins, I think it would be better for boxing.
Yeah, I think you never know what crop of fighters are coming along. And obviously with the likes of Moses Atoma, obviously potentially Ben Whittaker coming back, if he looks good and whatnot. Great Britain has got some good boxers coming through. But we've come out of the era of... Maybe you'd put David Hayes slightly before and Carl Froch, but definitely, the likes of Carl Frampton, George Groves, James DeGale, Tony Bellew, big names in British boxing, big personalities in British boxing. And Fury's one of the last men still standing, Yeah. And even amongst that sort of heavyweight era that was after Klitschko, the 2010s to 2020, Tyson Fury is the last man standing out of Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, and himself, Tyson Fury. I don't really put Usyk into that era, because although he might have had his first heavyweight fight in 2019 or something like that, he came towards the end of that era. So it will be, whether you're sad for Tyson Fury or not, it will be a sad time for boxing when Tyson Fury eventually does go. And I think I would agree with you in terms of the time is coming. I don't think Tyson Fury's got 2 or 3 more years in boxing. I think he might have 2 more fights in boxing, but I think that era has come to an end. But I still believe that he's got enough to go out on a high, to go out on a win, and to get the job done. But listen, we'll find out on the Pain Game, won't we? Yeah, well, we'll be there live on the Pain Game YouTube channel, and also on DAZN as alternative commentary. So make sure to tune in. And thank you, Joey, for joining us. And I'll see you on the next one.